Welcome back, everyone already subscribed to Exposed Cheaters by NDU Tale. Thank you. Your time, trust, and your comments keep this community alive. As you listen, share your thoughts, feelings, and lessons below, so we can learn together. Settle in. The truth and the twist are coming. Let's get into it. My ex-wife Vanessa looked me straight in the eye and said our marriage had been a mistake, that she had never truly loved me and only stayed because she felt trapped. Then she packed her bags and left without even saying goodbye to our young son. 7 years later, those words still echoed in my mind like a wound that never healed. I had spent years trying to forget her, trying to rebuild a life from the ruins she left behind. I never imagined I would see her again, let alone hear the truth she had hidden. Here's how it happened. Back then, I was 32 and working long hours as a warehouse supervisor in Dallas. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was steady and honest. Vanessa and I had been married for 8 years, and I believe we had built something real together. We had a small brick house in a quiet neighborhood and a 5-year-old son named Jordan who meant everything to me. I thought we were an ordinary family, the kind that survived hard times by sticking together. Looking back now, I realized the signs of trouble had been there long before she walked away. Vanessa had grown distant months before the divorce. She stayed out late without explaining where she had been, and when I asked questions, she snapped at me as if I were the problem. Sometimes she would sit on the couch scrolling through her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't show me. I told myself she was just stressed or tired. Marriage has seasons, people said, and I believed patience would fix everything. I kept working overtime to provide for us, thinking sacrifice would hold our family together, never realizing I was fighting alone. Before this story goes any further, have you ever trusted someone who slowly changed right in front of you? If you've ever been through heartbreak like this, hit the like button and tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment. The night, everything ended like any other. I came home from work exhausted and expecting dinner on the table. Instead, the house felt strangely quiet. Jordan was asleep in his room, and Vanessa was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 packed suitcases beside her. She didn't look nervous or sad. She looked calm, almost relieved. Before I could ask what was going on, she told me she was leaving and that she had already arranged to stay somewhere else. The finality in her voice made my stomach drop. I tried to reason with her, asking what had gone wrong and how we could fix it. She barely listened. She said she needed a different life, a better life, one where she didn't feel stuck. Then she told me she had met someone who understood her in ways I never had. Hearing those words felt like the air had been sucked out of my chest. I thought about our son, sleeping in the next room, and wondered how she could walk away so easily from everything we had built. When I asked about Jordan, she said he would be better off with me because she wasn't ready to be a full-time mother. That hurt almost as much as a betrayal. She kissed his forehead while he slept, but didn't wake him. Then she rolled her suitcases out the door and into the night. I stood in the doorway, watching her drive away, hoping she might change her mind at the last second. She never looked back. That moment marked the end of the life I thought we would always share. The weeks after she left were some of the hardest days of my life. I had to explain to Jordan why his mother wasn't coming home, and no explanation ever felt good enough. He asked when she would visit, and I didn't know what to tell him. Some nights he cried himself to sleep, and I sat beside his bed feeling helpless. I tried to stay strong for him, but inside I felt broken and abandoned. Every corner of the house reminded me of Vanessa and the life we had lost. The divorce process was quick and cold. Vanessa didn't fight for the house or custody. She signed the papers like someone finishing a routine chore. I kept waiting for her to show emotion, regret, or even hesitation, but she showed none. When the judge finalized everything, she walked out of the courtroom without saying a word to me. That silence hurt more than anger would have. It felt like I had been erased from her life, as if our years together had never meant anything at all. Friends tried to help me move on, but healing didn't happen overnight. I focused on raising Jordan and keeping my job. Money was tight, and there were months when I wondered how we would make it. Still, we managed. Over time, routines formed and life became stable again. I learned how to cook proper meals and keep the house clean. Jordan grew into a bright and kind boy who rarely complained. His strength gave me strength, and slowly the pain Vanessa caused began to dull. Years passed, and Vanessa faded into the background of my life. Occasionally, I heard rumors through mutual acquaintances that she had moved from place to place. Someone said she had been living with the man she left me for. Another person said that the relationship didn't last long. I never tried to confirm any of it. I convinced myself her life was no longer my concern. My focus stayed on Jordan and building a future that didn't depend on anyone else's loyalty. By the time Jordan turned 12, our lives had found a rhythm. I had earned a promotion at work and managed to pay off most of our debts. We even took small weekend trips whenever I could get time off. Those moments felt like proof that we had survived the worst. I still thought about Vanessa occasionally, especially on holidays, but the thoughts didn't hurt the way they once had. I believed that chapter of my life was finally closed for good. Then one ordinary Saturday afternoon changed everything. I stopped by a neighborhood grocery store after finishing errands. It was a routine trip, nothing special. I grabbed bread, milk, and a few other items and headed toward the checkout line. That was when I saw a woman standing near the produce section, staring at me like she recognized me. At first, I didn't place her. 7 years had changed both of us more than I expected. When she stepped closer, I realized it was Vanessa. She looked thinner than I remembered, and there were faint lines around her eyes. The confidence she once carried seemed replaced by something quieter, almost fragile. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I felt a mix of shock and unease that made it hard to breathe. I never expected to run into her again, especially not in such an ordinary place. She said my name softly, as if testing whether she had the right to say it. Hearing her voice after so many years stirred memories I thought were buried. I nodded, but didn't know what else to say. Part of me wanted to walk away and leave the past where it belonged. Another part of me needed to understand why fate had brought us face to face again. The silence stretched between us like a long shadow. Vanessa asked if we could talk for a few minutes. I hesitated, unsure whether that was a good idea. Still, curiosity got the better of me. We walked to a quiet corner near the back of the store where fewer people passed by. I crossed my arms and waited for her to speak. She looked nervous now, very different from the woman who once walked out without a second thought. She started by asking about Jordan. That question alone surprised me. For years, she had shown almost no interest in him. I told her he was doing well in school and growing fast. She nodded and said she was glad to hear it. Her voice trembled slightly, and I noticed she avoided direct eye contact. Something about her behavior suggested this meeting meant more to her than a simple greeting. I asked why she wanted to talk after all this time. She paused for a long moment before answering. Finally, she said there were things I deserved to know, things she should have told me years ago. Those words immediately put me on edge. My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. I wondered what secret could still matter after so many years apart. Vanessa took a deep breath and told me she had lied when she said she never loved me. She said she had been confused and afraid back then. According to her, leaving it seemed like the only way to escape problems she didn't know how to face. Hearing that stirred old emotions I thought were gone. Part of me wanted to believe her, while another part remembered the coldness of her departure. She explained that the man she left me for had promised her a different life, one filled with excitement and opportunity. For a while she believed those promises, but the relationship eventually collapsed under the weight of reality. She said she spent years moving between jobs and apartments, trying to rebuild stability. Listening to her story, I felt sympathy mixed with caution. Hardship didn't erase what she had done. Then Vanessa said there was another reason she had come back into my life that day. She claimed it wasn't a coincidence that she approached me. She had seen me walk into the store and decided she couldn't let the moment pass. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke, and I sensed she was building towards something important. The tension in the air felt almost like, right now, I need your honest opinion. If your ex disappeared for 7 years and suddenly wanted to tell you the truth, would you listen or walk away? Comment listen or walk away before we continue. because what she told me next changed everything. Physical. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. She said there was a truth she had hidden from me for years because she was afraid of how I would react. That statement made my heart pound faster. I braced myself for whatever she was about to say, unsure whether I even wanted to hear it. Some truths have the power to reopen wounds that never fully healed. Vanessa whispered that when she left, she hadn't told me everything about her situation. There had been pressures and problems she kept to herself, believing she could handle them alone. Instead of sharing her struggles, she ran away. She said that decision haunted her ever since. Her voice cracked slightly as she admitted how much damage her silence had caused. I asked her directly what she meant, tired of half-explanations. She hesitated again, clearly struggling to find the right words. The noise of shopping carts and distant conversations filled the background, making the moment feel strangely unreal. Finally, she looked up and met my eyes with seriousness I hadn't seen in years. She said that during the final year of our marriage, she had been dealing with personal problems she didn't know how to handle. Instead of asking for help, she convinced herself leaving would solve everything. She admitted that choice had been selfish and destructive. Hearing her acknowledge that brought a complicated mix of relief and bitterness. Vanessa told me she had spent years wanting to apologize but never finding the courage. She assumed I hated her and would refuse to listen. Maybe she was right about that, at least for a long time. Still, standing there in that grocery store, I realized anger alone couldn't explain what I felt anymore. Time had softened some of the sharp edges. She said she often thought about Jordan and wondered what kind of person he had become. She admitted she felt ashamed for missing so much of his life. I told her he was a good kid who deserved honesty and stability. She nodded slowly, as if accepting a truth she already knew. The weight of lost years hung heavily between us. Part of me wanted to end the conversation right there and walk away. Another part wanted answers I never got during the divorce. Closure is a strange thing. Sometimes you don't realize how much you need it until the opportunity appears unexpectedly. I stayed where I was, waiting for her to finish what she started. Vanessa said meeting me again made her realize how much she had taken for granted. She talked about the stability I had provided and the life we once shared. Listening to her words felt surreal because they were the opposite of what she had said years ago. Back then, she claimed she felt trapped. Now she spoke as if she had lost something valuable. I told her life hadn't been easy after she left, but Jordan and I managed. She listened quietly, occasionally nodding. There was no attempt to interrupt or defend herself. That alone showed how much she had changed. The woman who once dismissed my feelings now seemed willing to hear them. She said she understood if I never forgave her. Forgiveness, she admitted, wasn't something she deserved to expect. Still, she hoped telling the truth might bring some peace to both of us. Her honesty felt imperfect but sincere. I realized forgiveness wasn't a simple decision, but a long process shaped by time. I asked what she planned to do now. She said she had recently moved back to the area and was trying to rebuild her life again. This time, she wanted to do things differently. Whether she would succeed remained uncertain, but she sounded determined. For the first time, I saw a glimpse of the person she might become. She asked if she might someday see Jordan, even if only briefly. The request caught me off guard. I told her that decision would depend on him. He deserved the right to choose whether he wanted contact. She agreed without argument, which surprised me more than anything else she had said. We stood there for a moment without speaking. The tension that filled our conversation earlier had eased slightly. It felt less like a confrontation and more like the end of a long, unfinished chapter. Some questions remain unanswered, but not every story ends with perfect clarity. Vanessa thanked me for listening. The gratitude in her voice sounded genuine. She said she felt lighter after finally telling the truth. Whether that was true or not, I could see the relief on her face. Years of silence had clearly weighed on her more than I realized. As we walked toward the front of the store, I noticed how ordinary everything looked around us. People pushed carts and compared prices without any idea of the emotional history unfolding nearby. Life continued moving forward, indifferent to personal dramas. That normalcy made the moment feel strangely peaceful. At the exit, Vanessa paused and looked at me one last time. She said she hoped our paths might cross again under better circumstances. I didn't promise anything, but I didn't refuse either. Some possibilities are better left open rather than decided too quickly. She walked out into the parking lot and disappeared into the rows of cars. This time, watching her leave felt different from the night she first drove away. Back then I felt abandoned. Now I felt something closer to acceptance. The past still mattered, but it no longer controlled me. I sat in my truck for several minutes before starting the engine. Memories came and went like passing clouds. The pain she caused would always be part of my story, but it wasn't the whole story anymore. Time had reshaped everything in ways I never expected. When I got home, Jordan asked why the grocery trip took so long. I told him I had run into someone from the past. He nodded without asking more questions and went back to his homework. Watching him, I felt proud of the life we had built together despite everything. Meeting Vanessa again didn't erase the past, but it gave me something I never thought I would have: answers. The words she whispered in that grocery store didn't change my life the way I once imagined they might. Instead, they gave me closure. Sometimes being speechless isn't about shock. Sometimes it's about finally understanding that the past is over and the future belongs to the life you chose to build. If this story moved you, you're not alone. Real life is full of stories like this: betrayal, regret, and unexpected truths. Subscribe now for more powerful stories like this, and watch the next story on your screen. Trust me, it might hit even closer to home.